Good day, dear colleagues. Good day, dear partners. I'm very glad to see many of those with whom we closely worked together for these 7 years of Ukrainian Institute, and I'm very glad to see our panelists. And the first circle of questions which I would like to start with. So we were talking about a lot about cultural diplomacy. We talked how today Ukraine through culture appears on the cultural map of the world. And I would like to ask you about academy, how Ukraine after 2022 is establishes itself in the academical world, in the academia. Yevhen. Thank you, Alima. Yes, it's very important aspects that we touched upon today. Very often we combine the notions of culture and the science in the same space. In the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, in the educational and science, we cover all these aspects of cultural diplomacy and science and art. If we look from this perspective in the academia, among the academia members, we should acknowledge a certain level of inertia. These changes take slow, and but after the full-scale invasion revamped radically the context and the way how scientists talk about the problems. Because in the past it was Russia for many years that formed the agenda, the sphere of influence, and it was. But in many times it was not obvious that that influence that Russia exerted was damaging for European values and Ukrainian values. The same tendency was observed not only in cultural but also in production, in other laboratories, and many laboratories around the world collaborated with Russian laboratories, with Russian scientists, and Ukrainians always were underrepresented in those laboratories. The full-scale invasion and the last 3 years seriously changed the situation with participation of Ukrainians in these processes. In many universities around the world, in academia, the voice of Ukraine is heard more and more. And we receive the opportunity to argue with Russian scientific opinion, and we close access to Russian scientists. And for example, for example, especially now, we should say that the nuclear physics studies also have a very particular political context, and the number of Russian publications drops. The participation of European scientists in joint studies and researches with Russian scientists also reduces. So also only if we look in the situation globally, there are quite visible changes. Thank you very much. Natalia also joined us. I know Natalia joins us from Canada and from the United States. So, Natalia, the floor is yours. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this important event. You know, if you ask the scientists about the challenges for Ukrainian studies, first of all, I would like to ask, what are the Ukrainian studies? Are we talking about a focus on the Ukrainian ethnical space, or we pay also attention to the civil space? in the territorial civil space in Ukraine. I'm currently in Canada, and for me it's a very important matter because the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies actually was established thanks to many investments of Ukrainian diaspora. And we know that Ukrainian diaspora was very much concerned to establish, to grow Ukrainian cultural space. And speaking about other challenges, we as scientists, we recognize that we work in a very complex field. Our scientific field experiences reformatting. Are we part of Slavistic studies or European studies or post-colonial studies? We discuss all these aspects on scientific magazines, on the pages of scientific magazines, and at different scientific conferences. So this positioning is quite important to clearly identify for us to understand the vision of, to form the vision of Ukrainian cultural space, to understand its share in a broader context. Of course, we can speak also about many challenges, what to do with modern technologies, with emerging technologies, how to change, how to adjust to these emerging technologies, how to survive the right radicalism, which engulfs the entire planet and is manifesting around the globe, and even though Canada tries to keep within a democratic formula of life. But on the other hand, I also would like to speak not only about challenges, but from the point, but also to say about advantages of our positioning, in particular our positioning in Canada. Speaking about Ukrainian studies in a broader context, we work in quite privileged field because in Canada, among all Slavistic nations, the Ukrainian nation became a majority, and starting from the end of 19th century and throughout the 20th century, this society built quite powerful studies. In particular in Canada, besides our institute, which one of the major institutes in the world, there are many other institutes and research centers and agencies which work in many universities, and this is very good. And I live in the country, and I talk to you now from the country, which understands very well the processes of decolonization. It is a big advantage to us because this knowledge we can incorporate in our work in cooperation with Ukraine and cooperation with the topic how to promote Ukrainian studies in the world and how to reform these studies in the world. But I would like to go now to get back to the political challenges, geopolitical challenges, and actually it's very interesting in the if you look in the context, in the Canadian context, we should point out multicultural nature of the Canadian cultural context, and Ukrainian society in Canada actively participated in the development of this multicultural context. But if we look at the challenges that we face today and our attempts to promote Ukrainian-centric approach, and when we speak about promotion of Ukrainian studies all around the world, and I will be speaking from my field in Canada, then if we look at the statistics, then we will see that the 1/4, a quarter of Canadians have been born outside of Canada, but now live in Canada. They are representatives of those countries who are not big supporters of Ukraine. Multicultural approach means that representatives of different societies in Canada, they consume media, different media. They consume media from their homeland, from their country of birth. And this has a negative impact on us, on our emission, and negatively impacts on the Canadian society, because we all very well know Russian propaganda, Russian narrative. And so I will probably stop here. Thank you, Ms. Natalia. Mridula, I also have a question to you, how Ukraine after 2022 manifests itself in different countries in the academia. Thank you for the invitation, for the floor. How it manifests in different countries, in academia, in different countries, it's very difficult to say because it's all very varies from country to country. But I would like to say that there are both challenges and opportunities, because the opportunity is to learn Ukraine from the new page after 2022, but also it comes with a big challenge, because do we know all? What about stereotypes? What about the previous knowledge? I think I belong to the part of the world where this challenge is quite big. But there are also opportunities to create something new without free of stereotypes. But there are big problems. Resources, likewise human resources and financial, logistical, etc. In general, from the ideology point of view, if the Russian Empire is not except, after the Bolshevik Revolution, but pro-empire perception is still prevailing. This perception that Ukraine, this territory, is still the sphere of influence of Russia, because Russia is successor of the Soviet Union. Such stereotypical thinking still exists in the field of people, among the people who make decisions, or among people who write speeches for other people. And so I wouldn't be able to smile to you and to say that everything is good, but so sometimes people write quite controversial things, and at the same time, to establish such an idea as a coalition of global studies is a huge idea. This is one of the opportunities which I mentioned. But in order to implement this opportunity, we need to overcome many challenges. How to overcome this pro-empire thinking mentality, and how to change this pro-empire mentality. And the countries, it's quite modern to say the countries of the global south, to call them the country of the global majority. I will not give preference to any of this title. I would say it's the South Hemisphere. And so how to overcome this pro-Soviet nostalgia? While previously nobody really think what is Ukraine, where is Ukraine, people didn't even know. Russia is on the north, Poland is from the west, but now Ukraine sounds very very loudly, and the day does not pass without the voice from our Canadian organization. And there are many publications. Every day there is publication in the media with a different connotation, with a different meaning, but every day there are some publications about Ukraine. And so how to overcome Usually, when it comes to multilateral diplomacy, there is an opportunity to speak about Ukraine, and the Indian rhetoric about strategic autonomy also gives the opportunity to speak about a full strategic independence of Ukraine. And I can say from the scientific point of view, there is a big influence from the media because we know that analytical journalists write analytical articles, but scientists, academia also write articles written by journalists, and we need to make it so that scientists should read the articles written by other scientists. In the countries where there are no Ukrainian studies, the scientists would want to work with each other. And for India, it's very important to open schools with Ukrainian language. But when I speak alone, when I'm alone, speak in the Ukrainian language, it's very sad. So I would like really so that more people speak Ukrainian language.
Thank you, Rory. Same question to you. Are we viewed then something more than a country at war? Yes, I can mention that. Rory is the person I can talk in Crimean Tatar language for half an hour at least, and he will answer to me, so thank you. Thank you. Good morning, dear colleagues. I am pleased to join this discussion. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you, Alim, for this important question about Crimean Tatar studies, especially. I want to say and to add a few words on this topic. Recently in New York, I was happy to celebrate the first year of the Global Ukrainian Studies Coalition that was just mentioned by the First Lady of Ukraine. And I was happy back then, and I was happy today to hear about the importance of combining Ukrainian studies and Crimean Tatar studies. It's a breath of fresh air, and this combination has a great strategic meaning. It has an intellectual significance. It's important from the point of view of academic content. Ukrainian studies as a branch in the West have expanded the limits of culture and other areas, but the area we didn't succeed is spreading awareness about Russian colonialism and all of its elements. And Crimea is the central element of Russian colonial fantasies. So as soon as we start studying Crimean Tatar history, we destroy this illusion, this fantasy. This is the first important factor. And the second one is intellectual solidarity in specific actions, because the unique historic and intellectual path of Ukrainian nation was often covered by Russian mythology, and that's something which also happens to the history of a Crimean Tatar movement, and it is something unjust, and if you study Ukraine without the knowledge about Crimean Tatars, you cannot fully understand Ukraine, and vice versa. If you think that Crimean Tatars can be studied without understanding Ukrainians, you will not understand Crimean Tatars. And I keep repeating to the colleagues in Russian studies and Soviet studies that you will probably not understand Crimea and Black Sea region without understanding the Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar culture. So there has been this centuries-long dialogue, but it has long been ignored. What were we focusing on instead? The discussions between Ukrainian and Russian writers, especially in literary and cultural areas. We were focusing on comparing Shevchenko and Pushkin, etc. And such comparative analyses are fine, but they often strengthen the architecture of colonialism. But when we read the name Lesa Ukrainka next to Sakhan Chagayev, we open new horizons of knowledge for ourselves and for the next generation, especially, for example, Shamir Anadin. That's probably the most famous Crimean Tatar writer of 20th century. For him, Ukraine and Ukrainian culture were central in his work. He writes about the greatness of Ukraine. He did it in the 30s, and he even depicts a Crimean Tatar Khan who speaks Ukrainian back in the 17th century. And all of these personalities considered the modern territory of Ukraine as their home, and they all deserve our attention in this single context, single space. And this combination of Ukrainian studies and Crimean Tatar studies is important for another reason. It allows us to free from institutional limitations of the so-called Slavic studies in Western universities. Ukraine is being studied in the US, where I'm currently located, or the Great Britain, where I often worked, as part of faculties or departments of Slavic studies, and everything is considered as part of Ukrainian Polish or Ukrainian Russian relations. But we add Crimean Tatar studies, and that's how we complicate it, and we add a new element. We have to take into account even Middle East studies. It helps us to destroy the dominating stereotypes about Ukraine and add Ukraine to the culture and history of the so-called global South, or so-called global majority, where the topic of colonialism and fight with it is central. And our task is to bring Ukraine and Ukrainian topics into as many intellectual discussions as possible, and we have to spread our narratives. Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to go back to the previous topic and ask two questions. I will kindly ask you to give short answers. The first question is, on social media, you often put hashtag science diplomat, academic diplomat, and the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine works a lot on international arena. What emphasis do you currently put abroad, and what goals do you pursue? And the second question, the First Lady has mentioned today, as well as other colleagues, the Global Coalition of Ukrainian Studies, and I would like to thank our great partners, institutions, co-founders of the coalition, and the founder of the President of Ukraine on Science, Sports and Education, and Representative Office of the President of Ukraine for Republic of Crimea. We are grateful for this partnership. It shows how state institutions can get together and create something new together. The Global Ukrainian Studies Coalition, what does it give Ukrainian universities? Because we have representatives of Ukrainian universities here as well. Thank you for the question. Of course, I can say that we share a lot of things that are going on, but I would like to showcase the change of paradigm that has been happening on a lot of world platforms. Let's take the situation 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. There were a few main goals in terms of international academic cooperation. First is help ensure our capability, starting from financial resources, staff, expertise. We had to sustain and work with our capacities. We had to keep developing as well. Another component was the representation, who we are, what we represent, and we had to ensure that the voice of Ukrainian educational system is heard on different platforms. It's about visibility in particular. For the last year, we've been observing different funds collecting money for Ukrainian education, and we can see the changing focus. We are talking a lot about Asian countries, African countries, and when we look at the funds supporting different countries financially or just through partnerships, they actually have smaller funding, and the global financial assistance is declining, and so the competition for attention is growing. If we look at the big funds which participated in the summit of First Ladies and Gentlemen, one such example is a lot of these funds attending different events of General Assembly, and they were mentioning their stays in Ukraine and how they saw different shelters and how Ukrainian educational system changed. According to the classification of the World Bank, we are no longer in the top 15 poorest countries that need assistance, and we have to be in the focus of attention to keep getting support, and that's a challenge for education today. So what did we decide to do with international partners? It was reflected during different educational events. We started depicting Ukraine not only as a country which needs help, the victim, we started describing Ukraine as an example of how we can share expertise with other countries where emergency situations unfold. The separate direction in the world is educational emergency, and Ukraine has great examples of sustaining in conditions of emergency at the beginning of a full-scale invasion, and we can bring this example to the world and explain it during different events. Our speakers can explain how in summer the kindergartens were destroyed, and in September the children were there. Our teachers organize trainings in areas close to the front line, and our community keeps learning Ukrainian language, literature, and history. It continues educational process in different parts of the world. We have many different examples of resilience of Ukrainian students and teachers, irrespective of life circumstances, and all of these examples are voiced and showcased in the world, and it proves that we can be an inspiration, we can be a motivation, we can be an example of the use of technologies, and this changing paradigm from just expressing the list of needs to something that we can offer and how we can be real partners will help us in future. We are now discussing the next cycle of raising funds for academics. So all the funds are updating their 5-year cycles, and we hope that Ukraine will be a reliable partner that will contribute, that will demonstrate an example to other countries, a positive example. And briefly about the Global Ukrainian Studies Coalition, we've talked about it a lot, and we've heard a lot of examples from the First Lady. Ukrainian universities have to become a center of expertise, and they have to become a reliable partner for other universities in the world. And one piece of advice, please give a possibility to your partners to see you as a reliable ally as they build their impact and act in the world. Thank you very much. We have just a few minutes remaining for Rory, Natalia, and Mridula. I would like to ask you the question, and please be brief. The universities that you cooperate with, what do they currently expect from the global coalition? And Mridula, probably it will be the most complicated question for you. If there was some interaction with European and American universities, there was virtually no interaction with universities in India. How do we create it? The situation is the most complicated in India because there are many universities there, state-owned and private ones, and there are a lot of Russian studies there, and they have Russian language almost everywhere offered, but we managed to do something, and I would like to turn your attention into asymmetric measures taken by non-governmental organizations. We want to see changes in the world, and if you want to see changes, start with children. So the first concept was school essays, and this contest of school essays was organized even though we are not participants of global Ukrainian studies.
But that was essay which appealed to from 10 to 17 years old. So 2,500 of essay we collected. It's not a lot, but at the same time it is a lot because the organizer, our partner, said there was huge interest. We did not say, we did not tell them what they had to write, and so they wrote themselves. So they were such themes: my dreams about Ukraine, how I dream about Ukraine, how I see Ukraine. That's what one topic. Another topic I am writing to a Ukrainian friend. What about university? I will tell you about university, but I will finish on that first. And there was very huge interest to this topic, and this essay, this already, it runs for the second year. Now, about universities, we created an internship program in the universities. People listened, there was like a crash course, so people listened to lectures and they had to write an article, and we then gave them certificates. And this is how we conduct our work with 2-3 universities. There are also partnership schools, Kyiv Daily School, one partnership, and another partnership, Dinaloro and Lviv. That's the second partnership. And I would like to tell you interesting thing. One school is interested in studying bandura music, and they are ready to purchase 12 bandura and to open an ensemble, a band. And we're looking for a teacher now, because so at all these projects they can set up a system for studying Ukraine from the academic point of view. And so Natalia Hanenko, please, your 2 minutes. Thank you. I would like to return to our position. The Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies was created in the University of Alberta, and to a large extent, the community, Canadian community, and the university community took upon itself the obligation to build up the Ukrainian studies until Ukraine became independent. And for me, it's quite logical to say that Ukrainian studies in Canada is a place of power, because first of all, we actively network with among our universities, in particular in our own university, but also we cooperate with Ukrainian universities and with European universities, and we also have a very effective cooperation with Latin America, and we have our contacts in Brazil and Argentina. But for us, it's important to think about, to keep in focus 2 lines of work cooperation. So we work on development within the intellectual horizons, within intellectual horizontal access and vertical access. And so we also cooperate within with Crimean Tatar Institute and with Turkey, with Crimean Tatar community in Turkey, how to build studies. And when we speak about the importance of cooperation with other agencies, for me it's important in our university to build good relations with other smaller nations, and we established a scholarship and the first associate professor, Crimean Tatar associate professor, studies in this scholarship, and we are waiting for other applicants for this scholarship. And we trying to build up the vision, what are Ukrainian studies within, of course, the Ukrainian diaspora. We build this vision. We cooperate with Prešovsky University in Slovakia, and we really have a widespread network. In the last year, we had 107 projects, and 73 out of these projects were international. and we work in 3 campuses: in the campus of University in Toronto, in the campus of our university in Ukraine, in the Rome Catholic University in Ukraine. We have project of research of Ukraine. Yaroslav Gritsak is also part of our institute. And so these are briefly my thesis, and now I want to communicate the main message. For Ukraine, the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies is quite a unique place, and we, of course, we had several programs, but North American format is something which Ukraine really has to work with us actively within cultural diplomacy. And Rory, I am glad that you managed to be here in this anniversary of the Declaration of Creation of Coalition. Thank you, Natalia. Friends, I know we are limited by time. I just wanted to add that a bit of philosophy to my dear colleagues. Our colleagues here in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Europe in general, they expect a real partnership and creativity. And they need advice. They need advice. They need to change their institutional structures, the old habits, and this is a huge task to ask for. And we ourselves must be ready to help them to develop and not to be afraid to give them these universities, not to be afraid to give them advice, and it's very important. Thank you. Thank you. Of course, we could talk many hours, because when it comes to Ukrainian diaspora abroad, about Ukrainian culture abroad, I think it's important that we started a systematic work, and it became a game changer in the world. The academic work is something that forms the agency nature of our country, and I'm very glad that we all together move this direction, move forward, and I hope that next year we will have more and more negotiations and victories for Ukraine in the academia sphere. Thank you.